Hey y'all, I didn't see you there. Today, we're going to be talking about social media and artists. And I am going to be talking about a bunch of social media sites for artists that you may not have heard about, you may have heard about but not have tried, or you may have experience with. Hey, I'm going to be talking about social media today, and I cannot stress or reiterate enough that I am not judging you based on your numbers. I am not complaining about you. When I complain, I am complaining about platforms and who platforms choose to send my things to and how we interact with one another. And it's just an artist chat. Like, it's not super deep. I'm not trying to make a big deep point. I'm really kind of just trying to share some information and some thoughts with you guys that you guys might find helpful for yourselves. If you don't find it helpful, that's cool. Hang out with me, look at my art, and enjoy the day. If it is helpful for you, that is fantastic. Just a reminder, I'm not a social media expert. I'm not a social media guru or coach. I don't pretend to be. I am not purporting that I am. I'm not trying to pass myself off as one. I'm a small artist sharing her experiences with a few social media sites. I've tried a bunch of them. I have not tried all of them, and I'm not pretending like I am the expert here. These are just my experiences. The opinions that I share here are just opinions, and they're just a reflection of my experiences. They are not any indication of yours. You can find me on Threads, Bsky, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Cara, and plenty more sites, but most importantly, you can find me at natosoup.com if you want to read my comic, if you want to look at my art, if you want to contact me, or if you'd like to purchase anything that you see here today. natosoup.com is the place to visit. Talk about this a little bit more as we get into it, but if you'd like to support my work, you can read my webcomic for free at 7inchcara.com. It would really mean a lot to me. I've put a lot of time, love, and effort into 7-inch Cara over the years, and working on that comic has been my reason for doing basically every art-related thing I have done since. You can also check out my online shop at natosoup.com/shop. I have art prints, stickers, books, and more, and you can help fund future videos through Patreon. It would also mean a lot to me if you would go ahead and click the subscribe button. Thank you so much. Whether you are new here or you're a subscriber, I really appreciate you joining me today for this chat about social media and artists, and my experiences on different social media sites. It really means a lot to me that you're willing to hear me out and listen to what I have to say, and I hope you'll consider sharing your experiences down in the comments below. Hey guys, so today I want to do an artist chat about social media. And this is a topic I have talked about a lot over the years. I will link some of my other artist chats about social media down in the description below. That might provide some context to all of the different things I've tried, all of the different platforms that I've tried, and all of the advice that I've tried that didn't really work out so well for me. So I want to caveat before we really get into the meat of today that these are just my experiences. I'm not telling you what to do and what not to do. I am not telling you what will work for you and what will not work for you. I do not have a crystal ball. I do not presume to know these kind of things, and I don't make promises that I don't intend to keep. I'm not even necessarily telling you holistically what works for me, because sometimes what's working analytically for me doesn't actually work for me engagement-wise and isn't resulting in further sales. So I'm just going to talk to you guys today about my experiences in general with social media as a whole, some of the platforms that I've used, and some of the results that I've had from some of the platforms that I've used. This is particularly pertinent right now because as generative AI is creeping its way across the internet, consuming sites, and changing the landscape of how artists share their work with people who are interested in their work and how artists go about finding work, it definitely affects social media and what boundaries social media sites enforce and opt not to enforce. This is also not me giving advice on how to protect your work from generative AI. I believe there are lots of great resources for that on the internet, and there are some sites that are better about protecting your work from scraping than other sites. This is also not my personal view on generative AI. I've talked about that in the past. I am not in favor of it, and I don't use it in my work process. But this is not what this is about today. I figured it's probably going to come up in the comments, so if I could just kind of circumvent that and address it quickly, that's my goal. So I've been on the internet a really long time. Not even as long as many of my other elder millennial peers, because my parents didn't allow us to have internet until I was like 14. I got internet in 2001, and I have been terminally online ever since. My first social media site was probably a live journal. It might have been my DeviantArt. I kind of got both of those at the same time. And I have tried all sorts of social and semi-social sites over the years, partially because I just like talking to people, and I used to really enjoy engaging in fandoms. So I would participate in like Gundam Wing fan chats and read fan fiction. So I have had experience with a variety of different social media and semi-social media sites over the years. Also, again, want to really caveat, this is not advice. This is a vlog. This is me sharing my experiences. You may see me doing things that make you want to pull your hair out. You may see that I am leaving stones left unturned. This is not a do as I say. I'm just sharing some of my experiences with you guys, because right now there is a whole lot of conversation about this new social platform, Cara, C-A-R-A. Some people are saying Cara, but since I have a character by the name of Cara with a K, I'm going to call it what I want to call it. And this isn't me advising that you use it. This is not me advising that you don't use it. We have seen all kinds of flash in the pan social media sites pop up and then disappear over the years, particularly if you are, again, terminally online like I am. And sometimes it can be hard to predict what will take up and what will not take off. And what I've noticed as somebody who grew up with the internet is that sites that are supported grow, and sites that are left to rot die. And typically, sites that take on some form of membership tiers or advertising tiers, those tend to grow. And I noticed one of the concerns about Cara is that it is founded by an artist. She actually had her own work scraped by AI, and it actually cost her money. So she's coming from that kind of a place, and I can respect that. And one of the concerns is that since this is run by an artist, it gets really expensive. And as somebody who co-founded a webcomic collective, yes, it does get really expensive. So if you want to see sites like that succeed, you can click around, and generally there is a sponsor us, support us, buy us a coffee kind of link. So if your main concern with any social media site that you like and you rely on is that they're going to go belly up from lack of funding, most of them do have an option where you can financially support them if you click around. I'm actually sending like $5 a month to Cara because I like the idea, and I was looking for a new, easy and quick, agile portfolio site. Another bone of contention that I've been seeing online a lot is people are arguing that if you have these social media sites, you might not have a website, or you might be discouraged from having a website, or you might not decide to have a website. I highly encourage you, if you have the means and the ability, to have your own personal website. I have had a website for at least 10 years, like my own natosoup.com, BeccaHilburn.com, 7inchcara.com. I have a portfolio on that site. I have information about me as a teaching artist and as a working artist. I have my webcomic up on that site, and I have a shop on that site. Most people don't know that about me, even though I share the links, even though they're in the link tree. So that's another reason it might be important for you to have outside social media presence, is so that you can share these things and, attract a new audience. Because I was on the internet kind of before social media, and I remember how hard it was for webcomics to grow and for webcomics to build an audience. And one of the things a lot of these webcomics would do is they would join webcomic like KeenSpot and KeenSpace, where they all promoted each other's comics. That was kind of the point of Inkblot Cafe, the webcomic collective that I was a part of, is that we were all supposed to be promoting and supporting one another's comics. The problem with that is you're always going to get, eventually, once you hit a saturation of users, a saturation of members, you're going to get people who think they don't need to follow the rules, that they're above that, and they should get to pick and choose whose work they do share and whose work they don't share. And that kind of goes against the rules of most webcomic rings. So I don't necessarily want to just rely on the goodwill of other artists. I have tried to do that for 10 plus years, and you guys can see the results of that. Mixed results. I'm the internet's best kept secret, according to some folks. So I do actually see a lot of good in having both a website presence that's yours, that you can control, that you own the domain name, that you pay the hosting on, not a subdomain on a friend's, like your own thing. But I also see the appeal of using these social media sites. So currently, I do still have an X account, or Twitter account. I basically just use it to promote videos. And if I had a problem with a store or something, to talk about that. Like, I've really moved away from X for a lot of reasons, but not the smallest of which is, even though Twitter used to be my biggest platform and was my biggest platform for years, that started to really die off. I also do still use Facebook, but I pretty much just use my professional page, the facebook.com/NatoSuit page, and that allows me to promote the classes that I'm teaching locally, and I also share video there, and sometimes I share art there. And it also allows me to participate in local social groups. I also have an Instagram, although I have complained about my Instagram on here for a long time. It used to be a great platform for me to promote things like convention presences, like when I'm going to be at an anime con, what I'm selling, and to generate interest. But my reach has been just absolutely terrible since they introduced Reels, even though I use Reels. However, I use my Instagram to cross-post to my Facebook, so I don't have to maintain my Facebook every single day. And I also use it to cross-post to my Pinterest, which I have had a Pinterest off and on forever. I have a Bsky account, which I post to regularly, but I get really middling engagement. And I have a Threads account, and Threads is attached to Instagram. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. And my Threads account gets the most engagement outside of YouTube currently, but I'm actually not entirely comfortable with how Threads generates engagement for me. So we're going to talk about all of those, hopefully, as we go look at those sites, because I'm going to take you guys through my socials, and we're going to talk about that. So it's a little bit like an Easily Influenced, except we're talking about me today. I also made a Cara account, but I haven't been rushing to post to it because Cara has been having a lot of issues with server stability. And I understand that. My spouse works in development, so I do understand some of the hiccups and the headaches that can come from fast growth and a demanding user base. And of course, I have a YouTube. That's how you guys are watching me here. And I also have a TikTok. So I have been trying something a little bit different for me lately. It's not a new concept, but I've tried all kinds of things on YouTube Shorts, Reels, and TikTok over the years. I've done mini reviews, I have done tutorials, I have done demonstrations, I've done snippets of what I'm working on, I've done finished art reveals, and none of those really clicked for me. They didn't really generate a lot of attention and a lot of new follows for me, and it definitely didn't generate sales for me. Now I am doing the art flip, which basically I'll demonstrate with one of my postcards. You take a piece of art and you slowly turn it around to reveal your art, and it should be about 7 seconds. And for some reason, this particular media of sharing my art has done the best. And it does even better on Shorts. And it's really easy to share to any platform that allows for video. So that's kind of the direction I've been going in, and we can explore that a little bit more. I love that it's a really easy format to create for. I love that it is helping me find a new audience and people who might like my art and be interested in my art, because I'd really stagnated for a long time. But it doesn't necessarily address some of my end goals. So I've been thinking about this a lot lately because a lot of us work really hard making content that we share on social media. And I say content as a bucket term, okay? I don't necessarily think you should just make things, I do think you should make art just to make art, but I don't think you should just necessarily feel driven to make videos for the sake of making videos, okay? I think that can lead to burnout very quickly. But I make a variety of things. I make reviews, I make tutorials, I make demonstrations, I make time lapses, I make product reviews, I make merch reviews, I do convention recaps, I do artist vlogs, I do a lot of different things. So that's why I'm going to use the term content. A lot of us make content for these social media sites, or that we share on these social media sites, and in the end, they benefit from having this content that they can send out to other people and that advertisers can put money on and that these sites can make money from to pay for hosting and other issues. But in the end, we as users, what are we benefiting from sharing our things on this site? And I think the answer can vary. And I think the answer can be as simple as I enjoy the validation I get from other people looking at my art, to something much more nuanced, to I need extra income, I'm hoping to sell some pieces, I want to be part of the partnership program, I want to make money from people looking at my stuff, I want companies to want to work and partner with me, I'm looking for sponsorships. And in my opinion, these are all valid reasons to share things on the internet. The reason I'm sharing on the internet is, one, I have a comic and I would like to see that comic succeed. I'd like to see it find an audience who resonates with what I'm trying to do, who enjoy the art, who enjoy the storytelling, and are just enjoying the comic overall. It's a web comic, so I'm trying to drive people to my website, but it's also a physical print comic, and I would love to sell copies to families, to schools, to fans who really want to own a physical copy, to libraries. So selling my comic is one of my goals. Getting readers, building an audience, showing that there's a demand for my comic is one of my goals. I also make a lot of original art, and selling those original art pieces in addition to fine art prints, in addition to postcards, in addition to stickers, in addition to book collections, in addition to coloring books, selling my art as originals and also selling my art in other more usable formats is also really important to me. I make art to connect to other people, and I would like to earn a living wage from my art, from the work of my hands. I also come from a family of teachers, and I enjoy teaching and sharing what I've learned. I have 2 art degrees, and I enjoy making that knowledge accessible to other people. So it's important to me to create tutorials and to share them with other people and to receive that validation that I've done something useful and helpful and beneficial in this world, that I've done something within my power to make this world a better place, and that perhaps I've helped people find a voice through art and comics that they might not otherwise have. I'm also looking for steadier employment. I'm talking about like art licensing, comics, picture books, steadier long-term employment. And then finally, and I say this hesitatingly because there is interest in me offering commissions. I think I could do a lot of commissions if I opened up commissions fully, but I'd like to take on a few commissions here and there. However, my health is not great, so I don't have the physical stamina anymore to be income reliant on commissions the way I was years ago. Now, I used to be a convention artist. Some of you guys remember me from How to Be a Con Artist. And I used to do at least 14 shows a year, from anime cons to craft fairs to comic cons. And I liked doing it a lot. However, with chronic illness and chronic migraines and ADHD and Sjogren's, it's not really feasible for me to do shows the way I used to. So rather than being entirely reliant on in-person, in-the-moment physical sales, I would like to see more sales from my online shop. So these are some of my goals for social media, what I'm hoping to do. And I've realized that how I'm doing these things is not accomplishing my goals. Not really. I used to find steady work from social media, from Instagram and from Twitter. I used to sell commissions from that. I used to be able to advertise that I was going to be at a show and make a lot of pre-sales from that. I used to be able to fill up classes utilizing my social media presence. I was able to kind of negotiate more of those needs via social media. And as the social media landscape has changed, I've lost that ability increasingly. And some artists have gained that ability, particularly during the pandemic, and that's wonderful for them. This is not me condemning all social media. This is not me saying it's a terrible thing and you shouldn't waste your time. This is me just talking about my own experiences. Now, I have been trying to decouple my self-worth and my validation from the number of likes and the number of positive comments that I get from any given thing I share, right? I don't think that's a healthy way for me to look at my value as an artist. However, I live in Southeast Louisiana where it's how do I say this diplomatically? There are definitely nerds down here, and there's definitely people who like my art. And one of the reasons I moved back down here is I used to do really well at shows here. However, a lot of those people have left, and it's really, really hard for me to find my audience in person here. So I am even more reliant on the internet for finding people who like what I do and would like to own some of what I do. So social media as I currently am using it is not currently meeting my needs, and I'm trying to kind of feel out what might make it a better fit. Now, if I'd had an Etsy, I used to do Etsy. It was never a great fit for me, but if I had an Etsy, I think that would have made things better at a certain period of time. But Etsy has changed quite a bit, as you guys probably are well aware, and I don't want to compete with dropshippers. If I'd had a TikTok shop, that might have made sticker sales a little bit easier. The fact that I have my own self-hosted shop does not necessarily make it easier for people who are just randomly browsing the internet to find my stuff. It basically is reliant on me sharing it on social media, talking about it in videos, or you guys remembering that you want to buy something from me. And that's not really how the internet shops. Most of us are a little bit more impulsive in terms of our shopping than that. Or like me, we like to have a shopping cart that has 1,000 different things in it from various different shops. And while Etsy facilitates that and Amazon facilitates that, a personal shop does not. And if there was a way, and there probably is, I also am not interested necessarily in moving to Shopify. I already have an online shop, and other than having considered opening an Etsy again before it all went to pot, I wasn't really interested in opening like 16 different shops. Now, for a while, Facebook and Instagram allowed personal shop integration. And that didn't really, I used it and I would link it and it never really generated any sales, and that's fine. It just didn't work for me. It wasn't a good fit for what I was doing. But now they don't allow that. You have to have a shop on their platform or you have to be paying for their advertising, even though they take a cut from your sales. So, you know, at one point there were more options, and like YouTube will allow you, if you have like a Shopify, to link your shop down in the bottom. I wish they would open that up to any shop and just allow us to verify the process, because I think that would help a lot. Basically, me being on social media is for me to make friends and connect with other artists. When I was raising basil, I got a lot of help from other people who had raised rats and who had raised orphan rats and who had raised squirrels. I'd gotten a lot of help from them, and I was able to find a lot of resources that way. And I used social media I used to use it more for fandom, and I've gotten really, really burnt on fandom, so I'm not necessarily using it for that anymore. So that kind of circles back to the thing that is working for me, but not necessarily working for me, the art flips. I have gained a bunch of new followers on my TikTok. I've gained a bunch new followers on Threads. I've gained no new followers, I think, on Instagram, although I've supposedly gotten a bunch of new eyes. And I've gotten a bunch of new subscribers here on YouTube, which thank you guys so much for joining me. So in a way of building an audience who likes my art or is interested in my art, it's been successful in that the format is easy, it's easy to reshare, it works on a bunch of different platforms, but it hasn't resulted in more paying work yet. It hasn't resulted in more commission inquiries, it hasn't, and I'm not open for commission, so that's not really a big deal. And it hasn't resulted in more sales from my shop, which are all, oh, and it hasn't, yeah, I said, no, wait, did I mention professional inquiries? Maybe I'm a little headachy today, so I apologize. I'm kind of in the middle of several big projects. I'm working on a commission. I have a class on Thursday, and I have another commission coming up. So I didn't want to put this off too long. Anyway, so while it's like great for validation, it makes me feel really good, and there is the potential to find people who enjoy my work, it hasn't actually resulted in any monetary gain at this point. It's just been the good feels. And while the good feels are valid, I have had a really big problem with internet addiction, social media addiction, and validation, and I don't want to fall back into that. And that's just a personal thing on, where I'm coming from. So I'm trying, it's always a push and pull to detach myself from being like overly terminally online, but also living in an area that doesn't have much demand for what I do and doesn't have any respect for what I do. So I need to have an online presence, and I need to continue to push. So we talked about the social platforms I am currently using. In the past, I have tried DeviantArt. It wasn't a good fit for me and the kind of art that I made. I have tried Behance, I have tried Artstation, and I liked Artstation, but their soft stance on generative AI and allowing generative AI and not requiring to mark their work as generative AI if they use generative AI to create those images, and the fact that they were not going to ban or prevent scraping, I had to quit using Artstation, which is a shame. I really liked Artstation. I liked using it for quick and easy portfolios that I could send out for job inquiries. I felt kind of the same about DeviantArt. While I didn't have a big audience on DeviantArt, I did use their portfolio subsection when applying to conventions that wanted to see a convention portfolio, because it was easy and it was very easy to reshuffle things and easy to just quickly generate one. And it was easier than doing it on my website, where for every show, I might need to submit different things because every show looks for different things, right? But DeviantArt had a similar, really, really weak stance regarding protecting the artists who don't want their art to be fed into generative AI machines. Didn't want their work to be used for like OpenAI. I quit using both of those because I didn't feel like they were really offering me much protection. So this brings up the other social sites, because I mentioned I still use those. Twitter has an equally very weak stance against protecting their users against scraping and generative AI, and yet I still use Twitter some. Instagram and Facebook and Threads, being owned by Meta, have all just admitted that they've been scraping our work for their own generative AI engine for a while now. Why haven't I packed up my bags and shut everything down there? Well, first of all, with Artstation and DeviantArt, I figured that horse was already gone. I can quit using it. I can quit putting new art up on there. I can protest that they're doing this and not give them any money and not give them any attention. But the works that have already been up there have already been scraped. So that's kind of how I felt about Instagram. That's how I feel about Threads. It's how I feel about Facebook. Ohowever, there are some ways that you can share your art that are harder to scrape and less appealing for scraping. Bias off shot photos of your work, so like flat lays that aren't directly down but are a little off to the side, so it's a little bit skewed, those are less appealing. Videos are less appealing, so that's why I can continue to share the art flips on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, is because those are less appealing. So rather than giving up those platforms entirely, I just changed how I share my work there, and I just share my art on sites that theoretically anywhere I share my art can be scraped. My own website is not necessarily safe, and you can use glaze and you can use nightshade. However, I like to post from my phone, and both of those things are very GPU intensive. So that's not currently in what I'm doing. And I am not even certain that my art has the appeal they're looking for. I primarily work in traditional media, mostly watercolor, and a lot of what is being scraped is digital art. And that, of course, that bothers me. They deserve to be protected too. It just means that I'm not as much a target right now. Also, my art style is not really a style that I think most of them would find appealing. So while I worry about it, it's more like I'm worried about the future, and not just for me, but for any artist, including my students. So I've kind of changed where I'm sharing my work. Now, I mentioned earlier that I really liked Artstation for quick and easy portfolios. I didn't have like a big follower count there. I think like 13 people followed me on Artstation. I really didn't push for people to follow me on Artstation, and I didn't really engage on Artstation. I mostly used it as a static portfolio where I could upload pieces and then share those links with people. And that's kind of what I intend to use Cara for. Most of the people who I'm following and who are following me on Cara currently, I am already following them on Bsky or on Threads or on Instagram. So there are other ways for me to engage with their art. I want to keep my Cara as much just a portfolio that I can send out to people as possible. So I have really kind of covered my goals, what I've used. Oh my gosh, I like how I talked about what I used and I never fully chased that rabbit hole. So I will circle back just a little bit for you guys. All right, so I have used all kinds of art-centric social media platforms. I will try to talk about as many of the ones that I've used as possible. There are going to be some I choose not to physically show you guys on the computer screen because I haven't used them in years. It doesn't reflect my art, but I'm going to talk about my experiences. So I talked about using DeviantArt. I've had two. I had one when I was in high school and then one when I was in undergrad and grad school. Never really built up a big following on DeviantArt. That was fine. I never really used all of their features and I never got super into it either. I was more of a LiveJournal girly. After, when the art blog started to become a really big thing, I made a Blogspot account and I shared my art and shared my knowledge and shared my experiences, my trips to Japan, my graduate school, all of that. I shared that over on my Blogspot blog at nowtoshoot.blogspot.com. That's how I built, I think, most of my audience over the years. And this was at the point where it was basically dying. The social aspect of Blogger and Blogspot were gone. So I was heavily reliant on Twitter and Instagram to promote, and Pinterest and Facebook to promote my blog way back in the day before 2016 and before Facebook really radically changed. And I've been on Twitter since 2008. I have seen Twitter go from just a sentence of text and no images whatsoever, where I mostly just tweeted about what manga I was reading at the time or like how grad school was going, to what was a very flourishing community for me where I met most of the people I know from webcomics, most of the people I've admired as comic artists for years. It gave me a chance to talk to them. It also gave me crippling social anxiety after the 2016 election, and the vibe of Twitter shifted drastically. I have had an Artfol account, an Art Amino account. I have had an Inkblot account, and none of those really took off for me, so I apologize for dead internet and having these accounts because I never really found my footing there and I never really made friends over there. I just didn't use them that much. What else? I've had a Behance, which I was using as a portfolio until I joined SCBWI, and there was a portfolio review and they ate me alive for having a Behance. They thought it was the worst idea. Of course, they also thought using your Instagram as a portfolio was a bad idea. And then the very next year, they were touting using your Instagram as a portfolio. And their problem with Behance is well, it's so easy to just look at other artists' stuff while you're there. It should be a walled garden. And I do actually agree with that to a certain extent. if you're applying for a specific job, you don't want to send them 6 other artists who might be competing for the same job, right? It might be better just to send them a very curated portfolio that you've put together. But I was using Behance. It's just kind of like my general portfolio. But after that, it really kind of soured the experience for me and I fell off. I was using Artstation for a while and we kind of talked about that and how I was using it. So for some of these social media sites where I didn't necessarily understand the rules of the social structure, and keep in mind I have ADHD. I've known I've had ADHD for years. Some of these sites are less easy to understand than others. I would just use them as portfolio sites that were quick and easy to update on the fly rather than having to fight with my website to update my portfolio. I've never like got into Reddit. I read a lot of Reddit, but I've never really like gotten into Reddit and using it. And the fact that some of the boards allow you to share your art and some of the boards don't allow you to share your art, I just never got into it. So that's a social sharing avenue that I know worked for a lot of artists, but I was never able to use it for myself. But if you want to share my video links in appropriate subreddits where people might find them helpful, I would deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate it. And I've also been using Discord since 2016. In fact, Inkblot Cafe had a Discord server and I got to meet a lot of people that way. Some of them are wonderful, lovely people, and some of them I hope I never speak to again. And I also have the paint box on Discord as well. Now, I do think you can use Discord as a social sharing platform. There are some game dev Discords that seem really awesome for that. My spouse uses those, but I am not as social as some people and I have a lot of social anxiety still. So talking to random strangers in a random Discord server really spikes my anxiety, which is why I understand why some of you guys just lurk on the paint box, even though it's a small and pretty quiet server. I get it. So while that is an avenue for social sharing, it isn't really an avenue that I took full advantage of or I feel super comfortable with. So it's not one that I can speak to. So I have chewed the fat about just about everything. Let's hop on over to my computer and I'll show you guys some of my socials. But before that, I want to tell you guys a little bit about my art. So using threads, I have realized that people don't click link trees. People don't look any deeper than the top level of the thread that they're interacting with. So if you're an artist and you make things and you're not directly sharing them, people are gonna miss it. So as you guys know, I'm an artist and illustrator. I have 4 books out. I do not have volume 1 and volume 2 of 7-inch Cara on the table, so I will pull up volume 1 and volume 2 right here. You can read it as a webcomic at 7inchcara.com. My own personal site that I'm driving traffic to. And I did have a Tumblr for years and I did not talk about that, and a pillow fort as well. ADHD is a wonderful thing. I did write a script, but migraines override scripts. So you can read it at 7inchcara.com, or if you're still on Tumblr, you can read it at 7inchcara.tumblr.com if that's your preference. My preference would be you head on over to my website, but I do understand it being on a social site makes it easier to remember, makes it easier to follow, because a lot of us don't use bookmarks anymore or RSS readers. I understand. I also have Lilliputian Living, which is like day-to-day tiny people life. It is illustrations and then prose. I also have curious little things for my friends who enjoy coloring. And that is larger, cleaned up versions of my Lilliputian Living illustrations. I have some really adorable stickers in my shop. I have holographic, I have glow in the dark. You can find that at natosoup.com/shop, as well as some really nice postcards that can double as mini art prints, as well as 9x12 and 10x14 art prints. So if you guys like my art and you would like an affordable way to own some of it, head on over to natosoup.com/shop. And that link is pretty much always in my link tree. It is usually in my bio anywhere. So I do try to put it out there without being too much of an act. So let's head on over to the computer and take a look at some of my socials and talk about them. this isn't in any particular order. This is not me telling a story with the order. I just opened up a bunch of my socials. So I used Tumblr from like 2013 to 2020. Actually, apparently more recently than that, because we have the NAM to update. And there was a period of time when I was doing a lot of fan art where my Tumblr did decently well. It was also really helpful for me when promoting shows, but now that I'm not doing as many in-person shows, it just doesn't do as well for me. I did used to share art and like things I was working on to it, and it never really took off the way I had hoped it would. I never really found my community here on Tumblr, but apparently I did okay with the webcomic, which is actually on a separate Tumblr. Give me a sec. So here is the 7-inch Cara Tumblr. And this was pretty helpful when I was growing an audience, when I was kickstarting the second volume, that sort of thing. It did get a little bit more engagement over here, and I had to promote the heck out of this. And a lot of this, I was doing this while I was part of Inkdrop Cafe. So I did actually have a lot of support from the Inkdrop website and some of the Inkdrop members, especially with the link share. That was really beneficial at the time. Webcomics have changed a lot. Pretty much many creators and many readers think the only way you can do a webcomic is if you're on Webtoons or Tapastic. I am not going to speak about either of those because I don't have any experience with either of those. I think it's probably a your mileage may vary sort of situation. Some artists really found it beneficial. Some artists found it really frustrating. And I was just kind of using Tumblr as the social where it'd be easy to share pages, where it would be easy to promote pages, where it would be easy to grab a link. However, I never ran 7-inch Cara on just Tumblr. In fact, it started on my website and I was trying to drive people over there because I own that site. I can control that site. I can take things down. I can put things up, that sort of thing. I have used Pinterest for a really, really long time, especially when I was doing the blog. I kind of fell off of using Pinterest for a while because after the blog, I just felt like it wasn't really bringing people over to my YouTube and it wasn't really bringing people to my art. And there was a period of time where Instagram had actually disabled the integration between Pinterest and Instagram, so it wasn't as easy to share it. I found out how to reintegrate it, so I basically just have it pull what I post to my Instagram, and then periodically I'll go through and I'll clean up the links and have it direct link to my website or have it direct link to the YouTube tutorial in question. But you guys can see it's mostly art flips right now, and for the time being it's going to stay mostly art flips since it's ingesting from my Instagram, and I'm only going to be sharing art flips over on my Instagram. One of the cool things about Pinterest is that, like YouTube, it's actually more of a search engine than it is a social media site. So it can be a good way to find people who are just looking things up and are just curious about it, which is why it is important from time to time to go back in and fix the tags and fix the description and to fix the links. Inkblot. Inkblot is ad driven, which makes sense. Free to the user sites. You have to, the cost comes from somewhere. I had actually had my stuff pulled up and it never finished loading. I never really had a good experience with Inkblot personally. It was kind of crashy on my phone. It was hard for me to upload images, so I never got really far on it. Like I said, I was using it mostly on my phone, not so much on the internet. Some people do end up developing an audience on Inkblot. Like anything I say, there's going to be an exception. Like there's going to be somebody who like did really well on cheesy art, for example, or does really well on Inkblot, or does really well on Artfol. These are just my experiences. This is not recommendations or condemnations. I just kind of wanted to talk about some of these social sites with you guys. So I never really got into using Artblot, but I was willing to give it a try. I also tried Artfol similar experience. I was sharing a lot of Lilliputian living, so that meant for a month I was updating every day. But I never really found my people here. I never really found my footing here. I shared more to Artfol than I did to Inkblot, and you guys can see Artfol is still up. I know one of the concerns about some of these up and coming arts sharing sites is like, oh, but it'll be down in a year. Well, a lot of the sites that you might not remember anymore are still running. There's still a user base. It's just didn't necessarily work for you. And that was me with Artfol. I didn't really find my footing here. I didn't really find my community. And I also want to point out, every time I go to a new social, while I do promote it on my older socials, it's not really that important for me to get everybody to join me. I see it as an opportunity to meet new people and to have new experiences and to build a different audience. So I'm not really trying very hard to get everybody to jump ship. Even with my Twitter, which is still up, I didn't take it down entirely, because people do still use Twitter. I have some people who have a feed set to my Twitter, and that's how they find out about videos. So, you know, it is important for me to keep it going. But I mean, I do mention, oh, hey, I'm going to be at this other site, or I'm going to change how I share things to this site. But generally, I don't use my Twitter all that much, and I do reshare other people's work a lot, or I share my videos on here. I'm not really sharing art to my Twitter anymore. And part of the reason for that is a lot of the folks who follow my Twitter probably also follow me somewhere else, like Instagram, or they follow me on Bsky, or they follow me on YouTube. So it isn't as important for me to share my art to Twitter. And I've been kind of pulling away from sharing my art to Twitter for a while now, because the engagement on Twitter has just gotten worse and worse and worse. And for me, if people are not interacting with my art, whether they're leaving a like or they're leaving a comment, it can be hard for me to make myself update there consistently. So as that kind of started to die off, I started to share other places. So I mentioned having the blog. Blogspot and Blogger used to be a lot more of a social network sort of thing. And I did use Google Plus for a while. I know everybody jokes about Google Plus. I did use Google Plus. My spouse is a web developer and a software developer, and he used it, and he really encouraged me to use it. So I did use it. It was pretty simple to share things to it, but it never really paid off in a big way. I never developed like an audience there. So when it died, I didn't miss it all that much. But I did really like updating my blog, and the only reason I quit updating the blog is because Google allowed Blogspot to rot to such a degree that I honestly could not update it with video anymore. And the formatting was always broken, and I couldn't add images, and I basically had to have a friend who was more savvy with CSS and HTML come in and rewrite the whole thing for me every time. So that wasn't really feasible for me. So that's why I quit updating the blog. So I have had an off again, on again relationship with Facebook, and it honestly, it should be loaded because it's been loaded for a while. So give me a sec, I'll fix this. Or it'll load magically when I complain about it. I've had an off again, on again relationship with Facebook. I also have a personal Facebook that I don't use very often. Sometimes I'll share art there because some of my family likes to see my art. But generally, I only focus on the professional Facebook. I quit using it for a while, and then Joseph took out some ads on my Facebook and on my Instagram to promote the Kickstarter for Volume 2, and asked me to start posting there again because it did, you know, some people did decide to join us. So I started posting there again. I only really like Facebook because I am part of some groups local to my area. So it allows me to stay in contact with stuff that's going on. But as you guys can see, it's mostly art flips at this point because Meta owns it, and Meta has made it clear that they're going to be scraping static art and images. So I'm not really going to be sharing static art and images. I'm going to be sharing art flips for the time being. I do also share videos here because this is how some people find out about it. I probably should participate in Facebook art groups, but I'm terribly intimidated and just can't really bring myself to do it. But I also find Facebook really helpful for promoting my classes, and then I can share them to the local boards because, you know, parents follow that. I'll also share stuff to Nextdoor, like classes, and occasionally I'll share my art to Nextdoor as well. I'm not really including that in like us talking about it. One, because it includes where I live and I'm not really comfortable with that. And two, it's not a social network for sharing art in the caveat of what we're talking about. It's just useful. Like, okay, if you're doing like in-person shows in your local area, Nextdoor could be a good option. If you're going to sell some of your art at a yard sale or a garage sale or a pop-up, Nextdoor could be a good option. If you teach in your local area, whether you're doing private teaching or you're doing classes with your library or your community center, Nextdoor could be a good option. But it's not a good art sharing resource in the same way that some of these other sites used to be a good art sharing resource. So I do use Bsky. I share static art to Bsky because they have a different policy. I'm sure they're getting scraped too, but at least they're not encouraging the scraping. And I've decided, I don't have a big following on Bsky, so I've decided I'm just gonna like try to talk more about stuff I like and stuff I read, and like, because I'm not really into fandom anymore. It gets really overwhelming, but I like talking about stuff I'm reading, and I like sharing friends' art, and you know, so I do still use Bsky, but I am not even really thinking of it as a professional avenue. I'm really just thinking of like getting to share art with my comic and webcomic friends. So it doesn't quite have the reach, it doesn't have quite the same niche, and it doesn't use the same algorithms as some of these other sites do. In fact, I want to talk a little bit comparing Bsky and Threads, but I'm going to do that when I get to Threads. Speaking of Threads, Instagram, and I stagnated on Instagram like 5 or so years ago. I quit doing as much fan art, and they changed their algorithm, and I'd gone for 2 years without posting. I used to post a lot about like reviews that I was working on. I used to share a lot of stuff to my stories, just like stuff I was working on, works in progress and stuff. But I decided I didn't want to use Instagram as a social network as much, and I wanted to use it more as a portfolio. So there was a period of time where I was sharing a lot of like static shots of my art and trying to implement some of the things I'd learned during the Easily Influenced series, which I am still working on. I've just fallen behind on it. But Instagram has not been as awesome for me in finding new people and new people who might be interested in my art as some of my other socials have. Some posts do okay, like here's a post showing my table at the Livingston Parish Comic Con. Here's a little graphic of me promoting that I'm going to be at the Livingston Parish Comic Con. But like, it doesn't, you can see from the numbers, it just doesn't do for me what some of the other sites were doing for me and what it used to do. Like, I would regularly get 50 to 100 likes on an art piece in the past, and now if I hit 20, that's exciting. And a lot of it is just Instagram doesn't show people the people they're following. Instagram is more interested in showing us promoted posts. Instagram is more interested in showing sponsored posts. And like, there was a time when we were running the 7-inch Cara Kickstarter where we did take out ads on Instagram, and I think they figured out that they could get money out of us by limiting my reach, and I learned my lesson. I'm not going to be paying for promotion anymore, but it's just not, this site is not a good fit for me. However, as I mentioned, I have it set up to post to my Facebook, and I have it set up to post to my Pinterest. So at this point, I'm not going to share, like, I'll share product photos, right? Because people are not as interested in scraping that. But I am not going to show static images of my art anymore. It's just going to be art flips. And that's what's going to get shared to Facebook, and that's what's going to get shared to Pinterest. Threads. I have an interesting relationship with Threads. Threads hits a lot of the same buttons that old Twitter used to hit for me. My engagement on Threads is wild. Sometimes I'll post something and nobody will comment, nobody will anything on it. And then sometimes I will post something and it will pop off, and I really don't understand why. Like, I thread like I have 1,000 followers, right? Like a really small account. But then sometimes I'll say something just randomly and it'll get like 84 likes, and
I don't know that I am comfortable with the fact that random things I post will do really well, and then sometimes things won't. And one of the things that kind of gets me about Threads is if it were my art that was doing really well all of the time, and sometimes it does do really well, I would like it a lot more. But it could just be like me talking about a bad experience I had at Petco, which I'm really glad I got eyes on that, because it was a really bad experience and Petco needs to address how they handle their small mammals. But like, I would love that support on my art sometimes too. Also, what I don't like about Threads is it will literally show people just the first thread in a series of threads, and they will not read the whole thing, and they'll comment on it and get mad at you about something that you cover later, because we only have a limited number of things we can say. Like, we have a limited amount of space to type. I don't like that. And I also don't love that it will show random text blurbs on Instagram. Like, you'll get random threads on Instagram from people you don't follow. And the reason I don't like it is it can bring in some real bad actors who are taking their bad day out on you and using you as a punching bag. And I do utilize the block and mute features quite liberally, because it is my space and I deserve to be mentally healthy in my space. But like, I get what they're trying to do. I just don't like how it comes across in reality. Threads, being owned by Meta, has the same problems that Instagram and Facebook has. So I'm only going to be sharing art flips on my threads, and I'm going to share less about me as a person on Threads, because I get some weird responses sometimes from people I don't know and have never talked to, and they don't even click my bio to see who I am. I like that my follower account has grown quite a bit since I've started sharing art flips. I like that I am starting to find people who like my art over here. I like that it's putting my art in front of new eyes, which is something I have struggled with for years. I like those aspects, and I'll continue using it. I just don't like how sometimes stuff can just go like to people you never expected it to go to, and they won't even read the full thread for context before they're crawling down your throat. Speaking of Cara, I did make a Cara account. I saw it as an alternative to Artstation. I don't know if that is the creator's intention, but it kind of looks like that's the direction it's going to go in. Right now, it is very slow. It is very buggy. It's a brand new site. My experiences with Bsky were the same. My experiences with Twitter were the same. When Twitter got started, like, I'm old internet, so, you know, I expect a certain amount of jank. I'm going to use it primarily as a portfolio. I'm trying not to inundate the server with just mass posting my art. I'm basically uploading maybe a piece, maybe 2 pieces a day, just taking it really slow. Something I haven't actually explored it on desktop yet, and I haven't been exploring it too much on mobile because I wanted to give it a chance to catch up, and then I was going to add a bunch of people and like start interacting with people. But I know there's also like a social feature to it. I don't intend to use the social feature to it because I already have Threads and I already have Bsky, but I did want to have like a quick and easy portfolio that you can kind of reorganize and share with people, because on desktop you can move these around, and when I have some more I'll probably move them around. But I just thought it would be handy to have a pretty place where I can have static images of my art for people who want to look at it or people who might want to hire me, that sort of thing. I don't have any personal relationship with this site. I did decide to start sending them $5 a month because I know server maintenance is expensive. But I don't actually have like a horse in this race. I just had really liked using Artstation as a portfolio and was really disappointed with the turn that Artstation took. So I was really excited to see an alternative. YouTube is my best social media, which feels so weird to say because I'm not a big YouTuber, but YouTube is kind of where I can do streams, so I can talk to people, I can get the social engagement there. I read my comments when my anxiety isn't acting up too badly. I can share like full-length videos and like really talk about stuff that I'm interested in. I've been trying to do better with my thumbnails, for better or for worse. Who knows what the thumbnail for this video is going to be. Ever since I started sharing flips specifically, because I've been doing shorts for a while, I've done all kinds of different shorts. I have seen an influx of new followers, new viewers. Thank you guys. I really do appreciate it. And as you guys can see, the views can vary wildly, which is kind of cool because it lets me try out different hashtags to see if I can reach different people who might like my art. But the being in the like multi-K, multi-thousand view range is such an improvement over, I'm going to scroll back so you guys can see, like, these are all doing way better than my stuff used to do. Let me go up here. Like before the art flips, I might be in the hundreds for drawing videos, for that sort of thing, right? So like the art flips for me have made a really big difference. And I appreciate it. It's nice. It's nice to put work into something, make art, and for people to enjoy it. That is meaningful to me. I like that. I also like the community tab because I can share art here and get some responses on my art, and that's cool. So this is another place where I'm going to continue to share static art. And I do also post about like, oh, hey, I'm going to be on this platform if you want to talk to me or follow me on that platform. Like, it's not make or break, but I do like that I can share things on my YouTube channel, that I can chat with you guys on YouTube. Now I want to, because a lot of people are suggesting that artists go to Pinterest, which I would recommend perhaps. I mean, there is going to be some scraping, there is going to be some copying. Like, Pinterest is the land of unattributed art because people will repost stuff and not bother to credit the artist, or they'll put credit to the artist, like that counts. They're also suggesting you go to YouTube. I've been on YouTube for about 10 years. I have done all kinds of things from, well, all kinds of art things, from comic tutorials and comic classes and inking tutorials and con recaps and how to make merch and how to make stickers. And I have tried all kinds of different things. And while this year I love my YouTube and we're finally at a point where I love it, I don't make a lot of money from it. I maybe make $100 a month. I choose not to do mid-roll ads because everybody says they're annoying, and I agree. I just kind of like the community I have, and I like vibing with the community I have, and some of them hang out with me on Discord, and like I enjoy the time that I spend on YouTube. But it wasn't always like this, and like a few years ago when YouTube decided to pretend like they were going to follow the FTC's rules on advertising to children, the whole COPPA thing, I got hit really, really hard with that because they didn't have a general audiences category, and they flagged cartoony art, which is what I do, as being just for kids, even though cartoony art has been for everyone for a really long time. I also have problems with YouTube unsubscribing people, and people will send me screen caps and show me that it happened, and I 100% believe them. And I've had problems with YouTube not sending my videos out. So like, I have to hand sell every video. I have to hand promote every video. I have to really push every video to make sure that people see it. So like, I would not necessarily recommend YouTube unless you like recording yourself working, unless you have a personality that kind of works for YouTube, and mine doesn't always. I would not recommend YouTube if you're thin-skinned, which I am, so sometimes YouTube hurts my feelings. I would not recommend YouTube if you are already at capacity and cannot take on more work, because YouTube is work. I wouldn't recommend YouTube if you don't enjoy teaching or doing weird things or experimenting or playing or be honest with yourself. That's not me putting you down. Like, I don't experiment with stuff on YouTube as much as I used to because it's expensive and I don't make that kind of money. So like, just be honest with yourself about what your goals are with your art. That's why we talked about our goals earlier on. I like teaching. If my health were better, I would offer private classes for art. So I enjoy teaching, and it's something that brings me a lot of joy, and I would do it anyway. And YouTube allows me to continue to do it even with my health problems. So it's fulfilling for me in that way. But if it's not for you, then it's not for you. And as you guys can see, like, some of my videos don't do super well, and some of my videos do middling at this point. And it's only this year that I've started consistently breaking 1K in views. Now I have some videos that have done like really, really well in the hundreds of thousands of views. I don't know why they did that well, because they were recorded like trash and they look really bad. So like, you know, YouTube and I think there's probably some weirdness going on with how YouTube sends my videos out to people, and that's made it hard to judge what people will like and what people will watch. I want to take a moment, because obviously you're probably watching this on YouTube, to thank you guys for joining me. It really does mean a lot to me. I like making things for you. I like when you guys like when I make things for you. I like when you guys hang out with me in the streams and in the premieres, and it really means a lot to me, and I really appreciate it. Like, the complaints I have about the platform are not about y'all. It's about how YouTube handles content and how YouTube promotes content. It's not about y'all at all. Now, speaking of the store, this is actually not my stuff. I wish it could be my stuff. I've contacted YouTube many times about opening up like their merch program for people who have their own stores and make their own merch. They have not gotten back to me. Who's surprised? This is products from like Walmart.com that I think you guys might like. I just threw this up here because it was another thing to play around with. I don't expect y'all to buy from this. If it's handy for you, that's awesome. But like the same with my Amazon affiliates, while it is helpful, it's absolutely not mandatory. And if you have a local store that you like, please give them your money. Seriously, I love local art supply stores. So on the topic of video, but also talking about short form video, my TikTok it's my TikTok. I like TikTok. I spend a lot of time on TikTok, but I don't put a lot of stress in my TikTok doing super well. The art flips have been doing decently well. They do better actually on YouTube than they do on TikTok, but basically I edit the video in TikTok, it saves it to my phone, and then I can share it elsewhere. So like for me with social media, as long as it's easy for me to cross-post things and to reshare things, I will share it to a bunch of different videos, a bunch of different platforms. Like, as long as you make it easy for me, I'll give it a shot. And I've tried like a bunch of different things. Like, it wasn't just the art flips. I've done like little short processy things. I've done walkthroughs. I've done explainers. None of them really seemed to hit for me. I've done like little tip videos. So, you know, I haven't quite found my footing on TikTok just yet. I'm still under 10K, which means I can't make money from TikTok. And this is also tying back into the conversation we were having about like, what are your goals for social media? It's important to know what your goals are. I would like to earn some income from making art, right? I'm not going to like poor mouth or guilt you guys, but I would like to make some income from my art. So whether y'all buy from my shop or not, these platforms make money from me, right? From like the things that I do, they put ads on. So it would be nice if I could make money, even a little bit of money, from sharing my stuff on these sites. I'm not big enough to do that on TikTok. Currently there is a trend of like helping people grow to 10K followers so that they can pay off their debts. I think that's sweet. I like that idea. I like people helping people. I like artists helping artists, you know. I haven't been like pushing that aspect of it because there's people with sick pets and with medical debt who need it way more, and people in Palestine who need it way, way, way more than I do. I just like to find more people who like my art and enjoy my art. So, but I do end up sharing my TikTok to my shorts, and I share it on Instagram as Reels, which then gets sent to Facebook as Reels, and then gets sent to Pinterest as Reels, and then I share them on Threads. So TikTok is kind of the originator of my short form video. I told you guys, I have a website. It's natosoup.com. This is the Becca Hilburn hub. It brings you up to 7-inch Cara, the webcomic. This is the home of the webcomic. When I start updating it again, I'm not going to update the Tumblr probably because Tumblr has some weirdness with generative AI scraping, and I don't want to support that, but I'm going to put it on my website. You can kind of see up at the top, I have a few different things. it does bring up, like, I have an archive for the webcomic to make it a little bit easier for folks. Honestly, it's a pretty short comic. You could binge it in 2 sittings if you wanted to. I have my shop where I have a bunch of stuff, and I actually would load more things into the shop if the stuff in the shop sold a little bit better. I have a whole bunch more art prints. I have a bunch more stickers and postcards that I'd love to upload here, but I need more consistent sales for me to feel like putting the time in. And that's a crummy thing to say. Also, we're working on like better organizing this so it's easier to browse. Like right now, it's not too bad because it's not super full, but as I add more stuff, it's going to get more crowded. I also have a portfolio. Well, it links to my Artstation. I do actually have a portfolio on my site. It just doesn't link from beccahilburn.com. You may have to go to like the about. Yeah, there we go. So there's a couple of subsections, me as an artist, me as a teacher, and then there's a contact form, which goes to my email. This is not a social site. So it means I have to, in order to get people here, see, this is my little mini portfolio. And you can also probably see why I would want a sub portfolio or the ability to make additional portfolios very quickly and easily if I was applying to like a specific kind of, let's say, Louisiana food job, right? I'm going to want to put together a portfolio of just Louisiana foods to appeal to them. And that's where I see Cara being a little bit more flexible than my own website, because I can update it, but it's a little bit annoying to update sometimes. So basically, if I want people to visit nattosoup.com, I have to drive them to nattosoup.com. And how do you do that? You do that with social media. I also have a mailing list, and I know some people swear by their mailing list, and good for you guys. I have like 3 mailing lists, and I do not swear by my mailing list. I do send out some cool stuff. That's where a lot of, like, if I were writing a blog again, it goes to my Patreon and it goes to my mailing list. But I personally have not seen the benefit that some people claim they see from their mailing list. And I'm just gonna be honest with you guys about that. This is all a your mileage may vary. Different artists have different needs sort of thing. If it works for you, that's great. And I think that is it for the site. I also have beccahilburn.com. Same thing, it directs to like the about me. And then I also have 7inchcara.com, which is going to be the same thing again. It's just the webcomic, which you guys can read. And I don't think you can click, unlike Tumblr where you can click on it to get it to advance, you do have to use the cute little leaves at the top and the bottom. So I'm going to talk about Patreon. It is not as much a social site as I think most people who use Patreon would like Patreon to be. Discoverability on Patreon is not great. Much like my website or a mailing list, I have to talk about it, I have to promote it, and that's where social media is kind of helpful for it. But and this is me signed in, so this will actually give you guys a look at the kind of stuff that I share to my patrons. I try to be good about early access. I try to do weekly newsletters. If I have anything to talk about this week, I don't have a lot to talk about, so I don't have a newsletter yet. But I try to do like a weekly newsletter where I share like sketches and art that I'm working on, and then I collate everything that went live during the week. You can follow my Patreon for free. There's a follow option that'll like send you all of my newsletters and anything set to public. But obviously, if you choose to support me, you're going to get the early access. You're going to get the coloring pages that I make. You're going to get like backer exclusive stuff that I create sometimes. I'm not like trying to push it. I'm just talking about it. Patreon has been really helpful for helping me buy the art supplies that I review here on the channel. It is helpful when I want to run a poll and I want to know what people who spend money on my stuff think. Because, you know, if you run a poll and you're just asking the general public, some of them will aspirationally like the options, but they never intend or don't have the money to buy it. And that's understandable. But like sometimes you want to know like what the people who buy your stuff are going to be interested in. Running polls on Patreon is helpful for that. And it's just kind of a nice like blog space. I don't always like the user interface of Patreon. Sometimes it's really annoying for me personally to upload a bunch of images. It doesn't handle that elegantly in a blog format the way Blogger used to, but is now broken, so it can't. So it doesn't quite take the place of a blog, but I do like Patreon. I do utilize Patreon, and honestly, I prefer that they take a cut of my money so that I'm not dealing with ads. Y'all don't have to deal with ads if you're on my Patreon. I'm also not dealing with them necessarily selling or being incentivized to sell my data. So like, I don't have a problem with them taking a cut. And then finally, I'm going to end on my Artstation, which I used to really like. I wasn't like popular on Artstation, but I liked the format. I liked the usability. I liked that I could create projects and have like all of my process for that project in a subfolder. So like I could have the thumbnails and the roughs and all of that and still have a really pretty top image. I just liked Artstation. I didn't necessarily, to my knowledge, get jobs from Artstation, but I did send it out as my portfolio. So maybe I did and I just wasn't aware that I was getting jobs from Artstation. I also like that at one time Artstation worked with companies and would send you emails about jobs that you could apply for through Artstation. I really like that. A lot of the jobs were not a good fit for me, but I still liked it. This is the portfolio view. So it's a shame that, and I used it a lot, like behind many of these, there's like 30 illustrations or like the whole progress for the chapter. So it was really a shame to see it go the way it went. I also liked that it had all the social sharing buttons and I would use all of them. So I used to share art to LinkedIn because Artstation had that as an option, which meant I used LinkedIn more than I currently do now, which is not at all because it's not helpful for me really. But anyway, that's basically an overview of the socials that I use, that I find beneficial or don't find beneficial, that I've tried and it never really worked. I also had a pillow fort for a time being when everybody had left Tumblr. I never really found my people on Pillow Fort, so I abandoned it. That's what's going to make me abandon a site, is either it is so janky that I can't use it, I never really find people who like my art, so there's no incentive for me to be there, or they make policy changes that are predatory and that I can't stand behind. Those are the reasons that I would leave a social media site.
So Joseph generously correlated the follower counts for most of my social media sites, including some I'd forgotten I had, like a Mastodon. I tried Mastodon, never found my people there, and abandoned Mastodon. So, boy, isn't that the story of my life? So what's interesting about this is that we have follower counts from 2 years ago and then more recent follower counts. And this isn't the end all be all. I am not sharing this to make you feel bad. I am not sharing this to brag. I just think some of these are interesting since I showed you guys my socials to see how some of these grew, because we also talked about some of the things I've tried on some of those socials. So for Facebook, I started out with 1,000 followers, and I used to use Facebook a lot to promote convention appearances, and then I kind of fell off of it. So I had 1,000, and now I have around 1,300. With Twitter, I used to have 3,582. Now I have 3,436 as people are leaving and deleting their accounts. For the 7-inch Cara Tumblr, I have 621 followers, which is kind of surprising to me, but nice. It's nice that I had that many followers, and I haven't really been promoting the Tumblr. I've been promoting my website more, so it's still 621. On YouTube, and this is, you can tell this is old because I am at a different mark now. 2 years ago, I was at 16,100. As of when this was recorded, I was at 19,800, but I am currently at 21. Wait, sorry, thousands messed me up. 19,800 is when this was recorded. I'm currently around 21,000 followers. Thank you guys, by the way. And I think I got like about 1,000 from doing YouTube Shorts, at least 1,000. YouTube Shorts have really helped me find new people, and I appreciate that. Instagram, 2 years ago, I was at 2,543. Now I'm at 2,569. You guys see, I do share a lot of art flips. I've shared a lot of art. That is not a lot of growth. I am really not surprised though, because as we talked about, why even follow people on Instagram anymore? Because Instagram isn't even going to show you the people that you're following. You might as well just add them somewhere else and you're more likely to see their art. On Pinterest 2 years ago, I had 345 followers. Now I have 361. I'm not super concerned about that because as we talked about, people often use Pinterest as an idea engine and it's a search engine. They may not think to follow certain accounts. I don't think to follow certain accounts, but I might buy something from their website. So just because you don't have a lot of followers on Pinterest, that doesn't necessarily mean it is or is not working for you. This even has a follower count for the blog, which I think is funny because this is not how many people were subscribed to the RSS feed. This is how many people were following it on Blogger. So the fact that it had 431, considering I started Blogger as Blogger was dying, that's not too bad. For the 7-inch Cara mailing list, I have 1,279 people who are interested in hearing about 7-inch Cara. As of 2 years ago, I had 123 people on the Paintbox Discord server. Now we have 166. If that's one of you, make sure you say hi and introduce yourself. My Tumblr, so the Natto Soup Tumblr, is 1,538. I see that people are going back to Tumblr and using Tumblr again. I got kind of chased off when Tumblr has had a storied history, and I've never had like bad experiences necessarily with people on Tumblr. I've just, there's been times where people are like, okay, it's time to leave Tumblr, and I just kind of lost interest in Tumblr. But I know that Tumblr is having kind of a resurgence. I think if you're really into fandom and fan art and fan fiction, it could be a great fit for you. I'm not really into those things, so unless you guys want to see me go back to Tumblr, I'm not really that interested in going back to Tumblr. My studio mailing list, which we separate out from the 7-inch Cara mailing list, has 553 folks. I'm sure there's some overlap between 7-inch Cara and the mailing list. My TikTok, as of 2 years ago, was at 1,012. At the time this was recorded, it was at 2,953, and I think as of today, it's at 3,400. Those art flips really helped a lot, actually. My Mastodon has 141 people. You can tell I don't use Mastodon. My LinkedIn is 155. I don't really use LinkedIn. My Threads, so at the time of this, it was 587. I have broken the 1,000 people mark, which is really cool. And the art flips would certainly help with that. So I know those art flips, y'all, they're so easy to do. I love seeing them too because I like looking at other people's art. So let's make all of the internet an art space. My Bsky, according to this, is 206. I think I'm at 269 now. While I will, like I said, continue posting to Bsky because I like Bsky. It's a lot of people I know from other places or a lot of people I know from webcomics and comics. So I will still post there, but I'm not necessarily expecting to grow a big audience over on Bsky. It's kind of nice and cozy. And then on Cara, this was generated May 30th. This says 4 followers. I think I have about 34 followers now. And like I said, I'm gonna wait until Cara has had a chance to fix some of their server problems, things slow down a little bit, and then I'll start posting on there and following more people there and sharing. Posting on there and following more people on there, engaging with people's art, and sharing art on there more often. And I'm not going to put the links for all of these down in the description because, like I said, I don't use some of these. But for all the ones I think you guys might be interested in that I'm using or currently trying to start using again, I'll put those down in the description for you guys if you guys want to follow. If you are a fellow artist, so I hate to admit this, I I don't always check every single person who hits like on something of mine, but if you say, hey, I'm an artist, I'll follow you back. So, or even if you're just interested in making art, or you make something, I'll follow you back. So thank you guys so much for joining me for today's artist chat. It was a little bit rambly, but I hope it was inspiring and useful for you guys, and I hope that it'll allow you to make art decisions that are right for you, right for the kind of art you make, right for your comic or your art prints or your linoleum prints or whatever art form you are creating. I hope you were able to take some information and some inspiration from this. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope you guys will head on over to natosoup.com/shop and check out what I've got. I'll see you guys again with another art chat tutorial or art supply review soon. Bye guys!